Welcome to Improv Your Parenting, the art of turning parenting into play. We are joined today by Tracy Shea-Porter, who is the CEO and co-founder of Yes Unlimited, where she integrates her extensive background in applied improvisation, corporate communication, and leadership development. A graduate of the University of Toronto with distinction, she began her career in the corporate world and the improv community side by side, an intersection that continues to shape her approach to human connection and organizational growth. Tracy helps leaders and teams strengthen communication, adaptability, and trust through the yes and approach, blending creative agility with practical business insight. She is a professional member and active volunteer with the Applied Improv Network and author of The Yes and Business Evolution: Improv Skills for Leadership and Life. Her work has supported organizations such as Durham College, Fogler Rubinoff LLP, Great Places to Work Canada, Metrolinx, and the University of Toronto. Tracy, thank you so much for joining today.
Jeremy, it's my pleasure to be here supporting you.
Wonderful. Well, I'm going to start off the way I do with every session, which is how do you interact with kids and what role does improv play in those interactions?
Okay, well, that leads me to think about how I started in improv because I was in my early 20s and I was a young working woman. I was working in the corporate world, in communications, and I started in something called theater sports in Toronto, where I was, I just showed up at a class one day, and literally I have never left improv since the day I showed up. And the reason I mention that is I met my husband there. So in fact, I met my late husband actually, and we met doing improv in our 20s. I think I was 24. And fast forward to, I'm 33 years old now, and I have a 5-year-old daughter, and he passed away of cancer. And I mentioned that because improv was a thread. I mentioned that really up front because improv was a thread through the whole thing. You know, took classes, was a corporate, woman trying to make my mark, got married when I was 27. And then we did improv all the way through, as well as giving birth. I was 27, and then he passed away when he was 36. And I think this is really interesting in terms of how improv impacted me as a person and impacting. It's a really, I think, an unusual maybe story, kind of different. I would say improv helped keep me present and grounded. And also it gave me that's just the beginning of what I could talk about with how my life went.
There's so many paths to go down there. I think what I would be most interested in is the experience of sort of being a young mom at that point, forced to be a single mom. And how did improv help in that experience?
So many ways, because even when I started improv as a young person myself, I found it to be therapeutic because it helped me to be with my own early trauma, right? So it helped me to be present in the moment, laughing. It changed probably the pathways. There's like a change in the pathways even in the brain are impacted by the impacts of improv. So then I had more trauma. My late husband was also ill for a long time. And I was always involved in the improv community. And then with my daughter, so through all these different experiences, improv has been a common thread of keeping me present, keeping me in the moment. It's a spiritual practice, actually, as well.
It becomes one.
And as a parent, some of this might simply be who I am. There's a flexibility, though, that I nurtured through improv, which was listening to my daughter, paying attention, hearing and acknowledging. I have to go to that yes and that we learn all the way along, which is, I hear, I acknowledge you. I'm the parent. We may not agree. It's okay. I let you have your say and we build back and forth on it. That's a real skill that has evolved in parenting as well.
Yeah, you brought up something there that I think is really important, is the acknowledging where we may still not agree.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people get confused with that in yes and because they're like, well, just you have to agree to everything. It's like, no, I just acknowledge that that's where you're coming from. And so how did that sort of show up with you and your daughter? How did you do that acknowledgement in the points where you didn't always agree to where you could then build to something where you were both okay?
Well, I know my daughter, who's now 33, by the way, and we're very close, and we've had a wonderful relationship. She would say I'm a calming influence because she lost her dad when she was 5. So there's some things to deal with there and some anxiety, things that
Yeah.
come up from that. Me as a grounding, calm influence in her life, which she would acknowledge has been helpful. I am a good listener. I am always trying to see multiple points of view instead of
Hmm.
the, I'm wrong. One thing that happened through the teen years for sure was, if she was here, I always just say, I'm the parent and I'm here and it feels
Hmm.
better to be here. So if you're going there, like this can happen to a lot of parents, right? They're going down and
Yes.
becoming the teenager too, right? That
Yeah.
was not my way. My way was I'm the parent, and you know, and that anyway they come up here to be with you, and it
Yeah.
feels better, right?
Oh, wow.
That I love talking about is the teen years and maintaining the parent. How improv helps you stay curious,
Yeah.
stay open.
Can you tell me a story about that? Where, like, a time when she was really emotional
Yeah.
about something and you're just like, all right, I get where you're coming from, but here's where we are.
Yeah.
How do you deal with
Yeah.
that?
There were a lot of times like that,
Yeah.
being the humans that we are growing up as young people, One thing I will say about my daughter Alicia is I didn't have to worry that much about her because she was naturally good at things. So that's lucky. Some of
Hmm.
that's luck. Want to go out all night. Let's just use an example. Maybe there's a curfew. You have to come home at a certain time. Perhaps that could be a good example. And then if there's yelling going on, I don't know. And I was involved with improv all the way along, me too,
Hmm.
taking classes, being involved in the theater here in Toronto, getting into this mind of, or staying in this mindset of, I am the parent and making sense and being calm is one of the key attributes that worked for me. And ultimately,
Yeah.
if a teenager wants to act up in some way, I would be staying in that place and until she came there too. And that's a good teaching for
Hmm.
her because relationships, if you get into parents becoming the teens, it's all over.
Yeah.
It's all over.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's how to
Nobody's
maintain the
learning from
grace.
that.
Yeah, no one's learning from that. So it's modeling behavior. And I really think improv,
Hmm.
because when you're doing improv and working with other people all the time, all kinds of personalities, you learn to give
Hmm.
and take with all kinds of people and points of view, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Some of them quite wild.
Yeah. So you say you came to improv in your
Yes.
20s and it was through theater
Yeah.
sports. Did you do any kind of acting or theater before that, or was this sort of a brand new thing for me?
I did somewhat.
Hmm.
I did some some movement. Not that much, though. From where I am now, I wonder why I didn't do more as a teenager. Somebody literally
Yeah.
said to me, I went to an improv class, and for some reason, I think you should go. And it was almost like
And that's what it was.
a message from above to
Totally.
that. When someone shows up and says, try this, I'm one of those people, I want to try it. Say yes. I want to say yes. I
Yeah.
said yes to improv. Yeah.
Wow. Did you, when you were growing up, were your parents playful in any way, or did they incorporate any kind of, role playing or anything like that with you?
Well, you've hit on one of the key points because my dad really was the funniest person I've ever met. Grow up
Awesome.
with comedy in the house. There's no question.
Yes.
He was hilarious. Really would have been a great talk show host or a great comedian. And he was a comedian
Yeah.
in his life. And my mother was a spiritual person. The great gift they gave me
Hmm.
was the gift of reading. There was a lot
Hmm.
of reading in the household, and I embraced books and reading very early.
Hmm.
So,
And so you had this play in the house, you had this
yeah.
humor, and then when you had the opportunity to do improv, how did you see that connecting to who you were?
I think I perhaps was a bit adventurous and just naturally or through different experiences I had. And I don't want to make out like my childhood was perfect. Definitely there was a lot of other things going on as well in the home environment. And my parents
Hmm.
did split when I was 14. So I went through a lot of different things myself. And that friend said, you want to try improv. Something about you will connect with that. I'm really interested in writing books. I wasn't afraid to get on a stage, although I hadn't really
Yeah.
done it. I think that when I walked in the room, I felt like the whole idea of being in a circle together,
Uh-huh.
there was something magical really about standing in a circle and connecting with humans. Even at that time, we didn't yet have cell phones even or social media going
Yeah.
on. And just everyone having each other, the clap focus was probably the first thing I did. And everyone was kind of had each other's back. That's the feeling, the community of it. Yeah,
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 you're supported.
yeah.
Definitely. And so then you met your late
I did.
husband through that. How did the improv influence your relationship development? Did it in any way?
Actually, when I walked into the room, he's the first person I saw, and he was my teacher. And when I say that, he was just doing a dropping class. And
Yeah.
we met, and what happened is I just joined the community, and we just hung out every week. Perhaps that's what made me keep coming back, though, now that you mention it.
Yeah, sure.
And I just became part of the theater sports community. And I know many of those people even
Nice.
today in the comedy scene here. Yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. And so then you have your daughter. Is she the only child?
Yes.
Or were there other? Okay. And did you early on with your husband talk about how you would raise your child in, in improv influenced way in any way?
Well, a couple of things about that. I had Alicia, and then he
Uh-huh.
started to get sick with 2 years. We started getting into hospitals and
Oh,
chemotherapy, and it became a whole other world for
okay.
us that wasn't about
Yeah.
co-parenting. So that was a different experience all the way around. What I would say though about improv, that I then later, when she was about 5, 6, 7, I had her at the theater in something. The theater at the time was Bad Dog Theater, and they had a puppy
Okay.
posse. And so I actually had her in that puppy posse. Yeah, so she took class at the theater as well.
Oh, very
Yeah.
cool. Does she do improv now, or is that something she walked away from?
She do improv in the way that
Uh-huh.
it manifested differently for her. She's a big reader, a writer, and she's in book clubs, and she's just
Okay.
taken a different route with it. Definitely
Yeah.
influenced her early on though.
So tell me about that. Tell me about, I guess, the way it influenced your relationship with her, and then how she then used that to develop into who she became as an adult.
What I've noticed about Alicia, first of all, when she was little, I would have piles of books by my bed, and I knew I was onto something when I turned one day and saw piles of books by her bed.
Sure isn't it right?
This was an area for her. And books and improv,
Yeah.
it's something about curiosity for all kinds of ideas. And that is how I see books connecting to improv. Is storytelling
Yeah.
is really, really where it goes. I think it's the idea, and she has this, she teaches me now too, is that this openness, acceptance of all kinds of people, all kinds of ways of being. It's not like you got to be like me. It's more like, oh, you're like this. Well, let's learn from that. Let's learn from each other. And I really think, and that's why I
Yeah.
love improv for the world, improv for
Yeah.
communication. This is where growing up with Yes and teaches us this openness. Has it?
Yeah,
She has
definitely.
it.
That reminds me so much of Del Close, and I'm going to just destroy this quote. Used to have this thing of like, your partner is a genius, and it's your job to sort of bring that out. And so that it strikes me as what you were saying there is that your daughter or whoever you're working with now is a genius. And it's just like, how do I discover where that is, what that is, and then help you bring that out to show it off. So can you talk about maybe a time that you were interacting with your daughter where improv wasn't helping, or what you were doing just like, this isn't working?
I got the call that no parent wants to get. Alicia was a teenager, late teenager. And on the other end of the phone, someone said, "Are you Alicia Porter's mother?"
Oh no.
And I went,
Yeah.
everything stopped. I don't know what's going to be said next. This is how my life's going to go, whatever is going to be said next.
Yeah.
And it was the police. And they said, well, your daughter has knocked on the wrong door because she thinks she's going to a party, but she's actually, created a stir in this house. And so we're bringing her home. And so what had happened, she got mixed up in where she was going and went and was knocking loudly on the door. Maybe she had a couple of drinks or something.
Oh no.
Knocking
Yeah.
loudly on the door and stirred the whole house up, and they called the police, and the police brought her home. And so I was really actually relieved, Jerry.
That was it.
Got her home. Yeah, well, for a moment it was
Yeah.
like, oh. Yeah.
What could it be?
So
Yeah,
they brought her
totally.
home. Alicia was kind of laughing, and I looked at the police and I said, that isn't funny. And the police said, no, it's not. And then we were all kind of trying not to laugh. She was a good kid. She didn't get into too much trouble.
Yeah.
But that's a good story of how, at first, nothing would have happened. Nothing was going to help. Bad. Sometimes we
Yeah.
get bad news, and I've had bad
Yeah.
news. We've all had bad news. So how do we deal with improv in that moment where we don't know what's going to happen next? I think it was about just sitting there, being present is the key, I
Hmm.
think, with improv, because it does teach you that in the moment presence. And I think that moment of I'm here, I'm listening, I'm here, I'm listening was what I was doing with that phone call. And then from where it
Yeah.
went, I'm just being in it, and it ended up good. Now it's a funny story, right? Now,
Yeah, totally.
at the time though, in that moment, how am I dealing with this moment? Yeah,
Yeah, it could be going any direction
yeah,
and could be very, very
yeah.
difficult. And did you think that as you were raising her, I'm going to use improv here? Or was it very much just a natural, well, this is just what
Right.
works?
I would say it's natural, and I think that well, I also want to say that every day, we all are, and I know I am, some irritation or some way of reacting that maybe isn't the best. So
Hmm.
I think what improv does, it helps me observe myself more with a
Mm.
sense, by the way. This helps a
Yes.
lot. So, like, I'm irritated because someone's walking by and they smoked, spit, whatever it is, right? Pushed, whatever it is, you get a little irritation. Well, how are you going to deal with that? I'm not going to get into an argument because improv's taught me to
Yeah.
have a sense of humor about what's
Yeah.
going on. A great example of this, I have to say, was me. I was riding my bike and a car cut me off, and we just stopped for a moment. And I went, and he went, and then I went, and then he went, and off we
Oh,
went,
good.
feeling good.
Mirroring.
Yeah, and
Yes.
that was improv coming in, swooping in on the and going, have a sense of humor. Yeah,
Nice. Yes. Yeah. And I think that speaks so much to how it could be helpful, particularly with kids, but just interacting with anybody,
yeah,
is you have the choice of the response that you're going to make. And you could choose, I'm going to be angry, I'm going to curse, or you could choose, like, how do we laugh at this? This is a ridiculous situation, or even if it isn't, how do we have fun out of it?
yeah. It can go
Yeah.
this way or this way. It can make your day a good day, or it can affect in a negative way. Let's go with the good day. Let's
Yeah.
go with the good day.
Totally. And it's the choice you get to
Yeah,
make. And that's one of the things I love about it is you have that opportunity to be like, you know what? I'm going with
I'm
good.
going good.
You
I've
know?
learned to observe
Exactly.
myself more. It's a
Yeah.
kind of a self awareness, right?
Yeah. Now, does that come from being able to step back and pause for a moment, or can you observe in real time? How does that work for you, I guess, is the way to
I
ask
observe
that.
in real time. And this
Okay.
is years of improv. Also, I'm into spiritual practice in terms of meditation, yoga,
Hmm.
biking, anything that can get. I do. These are things I love to do. I'm a big bicyclist too. All of these
Hmm.
things help you stay present and aware and in the moment, and also help your
Hmm.
improv's great for boosting all those feel good chemicals, right? You're
Yes.
laughing. And so the more you do these types of practices, the more your body gets used to them and says, oh, I want more of that. That
Yeah.
makes me feel good. Improv does make you feel good and it gets you out of the looking at my phone. So if you're on your bike, you can't look at your phone. If you're doing yoga, you can't
Yeah.
look at your phone. If you're doing improv, you can't look at your phone. You have to be right there engaged.
Yeah, yeah. And you bring up the desire to have more of it and to keep coming back. And that's something that talking to people who have been in this for any amount of time really is if they've come back, they tend to keep coming back to it. And even if they've been away for a long time, they'll come back to it and be like, "Oh yeah, I totally missed this." What do you think that is? Is it just the dopamine, or is it what's there that it brings you back in a way that you're like, "I need more."
Well, so you heard I started at 24 in improv. I got married, I
Yeah.
had a child, and then I took some break for a few years after, as Alicia was young. My late husband passed away, Rob,
Hmm.
and then I took a break, and I was with Alicia, or living down on the Danforth in Toronto, where a lot of comedy is around here. And I was walking
Okay.
down the street, and someone I knew at Theatre Sports walked by, and suddenly when you're doing improv, there's a bond. There's this
Yeah.
tremendous bond with anyone you've done improv with. It lasts your whole life. Someone I knew walked by and said, "Oh, Tracy." This person said, "Come back to improv. It's good again."
What happened to
Well, sometimes,
it?
in communities, there's ebbs and flows. And for a while, theater
Yeah.
sports canceled. And now in Toronto, there's Bad Dogs still here, Social Capital Theater, Comedy Bar, Second City. We have a lot of improv. So I think
Yeah.
one of the One of the great points of improv is this bonded community. So now, for example, my business partner has a theater called the Social Capital. He was co-founder of Bad Dog, Ralph McLeod. We met in the Bad Dog days. And when I go to the Social Capital, I walk in and people I knew from when I was 24 are there. So
Wow,
I think
that's
what draw
incredible.
it's the I have to keep going back to the bonding, the community. There's a
Yeah.
shared history, right? So it's like a group of humans who, and when now I'm part of, I met you, Jeremy, through the Applied Improvisation Network. Now it's a bonded community around the world as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and this love of play, laughter, being in the moment, presence, yes, and staying open, all the things we're talking about. Curiosity is huge. Yeah.
Yeah. And so now that your daughter's an
Yes.
adult, how do you continue to interact with her in a playful way?
Right. In our relationship, Alicia, obviously, I'm her mother, right? So I'm a little bit
Yeah.
of a mentor figure for sure. And she's not going to
Uh-huh.
describe me as a perfect human. I think what she would say
Well,
through the years about me is sometimes she didn't feel like I was, I had a lot of trauma to deal with myself. I was a single mother. I don't want to gloss over, what it's like as a
it's
young
tough.
person to suddenly be faced with raising a child on your own.
Yeah.
And I was also 30, and so I'm sure that I had trauma as well, right? So I would say that she just want to say that out loud because I don't want to present like suddenly improv made my life perfect or something. What I would say though is the tool kept like I was working full time. I was finishing my university degree at the same time. I was in
Wow.
improv. I was doing a lot of things, big
Yeah.
reading. And I would say that where it's come to through our relationship over the years, she also left for 10 years, lived in Montreal, got her degree, went to Halifax. We stayed close all the time, but she got to live her own life. She's back here now. I love it.
It's,
We're very bonded though, very close. And I
yeah.
would say I would say I'm a safe, every day we talk. She wants to tell me what happened. I'm a
Wow.
mentor. I give her support. And I would say I've remained that calming, grounded influence in her life through all of that. And I would say that I'm not sure, some of that might just be personality. I have to give a lot of credit. My love of improv's really there though, and my
Yeah.
seeing the benefit for people to really how improv helps create human connection. And Alicia and I have a lot of human connection. She really is my favorite person on the planet.
That's
Yeah,
incredible. Yeah. And so, I mean, there's still the mom
yeah,
daughter, but there's also, it sounds like, a lot more there.
yeah.
And maybe the improv helped influence that area quite a bit.
Yeah, in fact, yes, and also perhaps letting her see that a woman, her mother, who's a single parent, now Jeremy, I have my own improv business. I have a
Hmm.
book. I did a lot of things through improv, and what makes me feel good about all that is it setting an example.
Yeah. Yeah.
This happened to me. I had some child death. I'm a single parent. I want, have a family environment around me, friends. Still, you have to get up every day and make it happen. And she and I
Yeah.
lived alone together all those years and all through all of that with our cats. I can't, I have to give, we love cats as
Give
well.
some credit to
We have to
them.
give
Yeah.
credit to the
Definitely.
cats and improv. And so she knows, she watches me get up
Yeah.
every day, do of influence, going to school, working. She's watched that, and I see
Yeah.
her taking those skills that she witnessed and embodying them herself. Very open person that she's. I'm very proud of her.
That's
Yeah,
incredible. And it sounds like well deserved in terms of that pride. And what a great role model to have and to be able to still connect with you so regularly, so freely, and so beneficially for both of you. You've talked about the business and writing the book.
yeah,
Can you tell me a little bit about that? What is it you do in that space, and how are
yeah.
you taking this out to the rest of the world?
Yeah, so I worked in the corporate world and did improv for decades, and then so I was doing that all along and noticing how improv skills worked really well in the corporate world and started bringing them in. Sort of how can teams listen more effectively to one another, communicate better, collaborate more efficiently, open to innovation. And while I was seeing that, I was also in a comedy group myself for over 10 years. So it was kind of a hobby. So I got to know the comedy community in Toronto, and I knew Ralph McLeod. He's my business partner in a company called Yes Unlimited. He owns the Soul Theater, where I go and see all my buddies all the time. Started
Yeah.
about 10 years ago doing corporate training, applied improvisation. So using improv for non-performance skill development. It's really grown into leadership development and to write a book about it, the Yes and Business Evolution. And I built some partnerships, such as with Great Place to Work, which is an international organization that certifies companies to be great places to work. So all of these things have been puzzle pieces for me, and I'm actually really more excited than ever about where that's going to go. In terms of helping the world community better. Because I think, Jeremy, we might all agree we could use a little improv and yes and.
I think there's opportunity there, definitely. What's your vision for that? What does that look like?
What that looks like, I like the Applied Improvisation Network actually as an international community of people doing what we do. You're in Ireland, I'm in
Yeah.
Canada. Well, people like us are all over the world, and we can connect through the Applied Improvisation Network. It's a nonprofit which brings together people who want to do improv, whether it's corporate, education, healthcare. My vision for that is that we all work together to help people yes and whether it's yes and some people like to use different approaches, whatever it is to help people open up and start listening. I think listening has to be the number one pathway here. If I said
Yeah.
nothing else, it would be let's listen to one another, stay open, acknowledge even if we don't agree, that's okay. And that's really the principle of improv. That's my vision.
Definitely the best place to
Yeah.
start, right? Is just listen and try to understand where they're coming
Yeah.
from and say, okay, I get where you're coming from. There's a lot of questions I could ask from there, but I want to take it back to
Yeah.
parenting really quick. Is if you were going to be starting over as a new
Yeah.
parent and you had the opportunity to, with what you know now, give that new young Tracy some guidance,
Yeah.
what do you think the guidance would be?
Right. I'm going to answer that in two parts. One is believe in yourself, and it's about confidence, really.
Yeah.
I think a lot of things come down to don't be afraid to make mistakes, which is another one of the big beauties of improv. Is there's a lot of perfectionism going around still, and this idea that you have to get it right and be perfect right away. What I love about improv is, hey, you're going to suck for a while,
Totally.
and what we need to be saying is, hey, yeah, great, you failed. Amazing. What did you learn and grow?
Yeah.
And I have an agent, I do tutoring for high school and university students. So over recent years, I've witnessed a lot of, the anxiety from COVID and, all kinds of situations. And I do one-on-one tutoring. And what I've noticed working with a lot of young people still today is the anxiety and the social media and the pressures of today's world, which are different than when I was 20. What I've learned, it still really does come down to listening. I hear you, I see you, it's presence and spending time. And that seeing that full thread doesn't change. We're humans and we need that connection.
Everybody kind of just wants to be heard,
Yeah.
wants somebody there. And, it's hard to try to do it all alone. And, if you have somebody that can help you, that makes a lot of things easier. Yeah. Is there anything you particularly want to talk about or to share that I haven't asked about your parenting experience, about improv in general and how they're related?
I think when I look at where I'm at in the world and what I see around me, whether it's through talking to you today, thank you for having me. It's around the world with people who do this kind of work, or the polarization that causes where we're at today to be very stressful and creates a lot of anxiety for people. I would say, find what you love. Try improv. It might be for you. A lot of people call it the active form of meditation. There's some,
I could see
yeah,
that.
like an active form, like meditation. You might love improv, for example.
Yeah. Yeah.
Try things. Try improv. Try biking. Try things that get you away from and get you into
Yeah.
human connections. And that would be my message: is to keep. It's a moment by moment practice of how can you disrupt kind of the negative feelings and be a part of helping the world heal and grow and prosper.
I love that.
Where you put your awareness grows.
So put it into connections, put it into
Yeah.
people, put it into relationship. Yes. I think that that's absolutely beautiful. Tracy, thank you so much for one, what you've done, two, what you're now sharing with the world, and three, just for being cool in its own right as a person. I think you're pretty cool. Thank you.
Jeremy, it's a pleasure. I look forward to working with you. I can't wait to visit Ireland.
Yes,
And
I'd love to show you around.